Hey everyone, this is Alexusadays, and today we're going to have a really interesting conversation with Igor Dorovskikh. He is an owner and founder of Ingenious, a consulting company, and he has a lot of services bundled up. But I would like to have a good conversation about AI, the future of testing with AI. Igor is an expert, and if you don't mind, can you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Thank you, Alex, for having me at your show. I'm super excited. I think you already did. You said everything about what I do. So I'm indeed the founder of Ingenious since 2019. And Ingenious is a consulting company, which is kind of a mix of traditional outsource, which they call managed delivery nowadays, with a little bit of staff augmentation, but targeting obviously with the consulting flavor to help companies to achieve their goals. And we provide services in both software development, where most of our clients are mobile first clients. We build mobile applications from design all the way to implementation, deployment to app stores. And we're also heavily involved in the quality. Usually it's the main pain point for a lot of companies. So we help to consult on the best practices, working from large enterprises, companies like Apple, companies like LTK Reward Style was our client, Grammarly, and the small startups. And besides that, I'm also part-time fractional CEO of a company called Marathon. I'm not the founder there. I'm just running their US division. It's a SaaS solution for running tests, specifically mobile. And we partner with them where we need to help companies to scale a true shift left and running like thousands of tests, in like under 10 minutes. And that's
Right.
where I also help to expand that business. So I do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that I've told about recently on my channel is that I'm going to bring an expert in AI. And you are that expert, and you've been doing AI testing for quite some time now. And I know you have a creative course material on that. And I just want to talk about, the future of QA from your perspective, like considering all the investment that you did in the, training AI, learning AI, how to test AI.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself an expert, to be honest. I mean, my team we have right now more than 50 people working in Ingenious, and we definitely have more experts than I am. I would say I'm fairly knowledgeable about this, but not an expert. However, because again of consulting flavor that we do as a business, I've been exposed to a lot of different projects that touch AI in one way to another. And I presume today we're going to talk about quality specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's probably very important because there's development around AI. I mean, mostly you don't develop much about most trained models, but however, there's a fair amount of development. But today, let's focus on quality, right? And
Yep.
then I think that's probably primarily will be the topic for today's conversation. So
Yes.
let's divide this in two different verticals, right? A lot of people try to scramble everything together when they talk about AI and testing, right? So let's put one vertical, which is I think is called AI assistance in testing. And when folks talking about like Playwright with Cursor, Windsurf ID, Cloud Code, right, and MCP lately for the past few months, everybody talk about the Playwright MCP if you're on the web testing. This is AI assistance in testing, right? Basically, it enables testers to automate 3x, 5x faster than it used to be. Like when you, especially when you start greenfield, to build a boilerplate code to go from zero to some sort of framework, it used to take months. Now it takes like minutes for most projects. And that's where AI assistant testing. And on top of this, we're talking about other tooling that goes with this, which is some of this open source, like Maestro, for instance, trying to build this around the mobile. This is the APM of the market, even in some native frameworks. And there's proprietary solutions such as Functionize, Saola. We just start partnering with them. It's Israeli companies that took that space, and companies you've heard before like Mabel and Jason Auburn, famous testers.ai. If you never tried that, you should definitely try testers.ai. Is
Yeah.
amazing tool. Yeah, so this is AI system testing, right? This is one vertical. Basically it helps smart senior level QE or SDATs to go fast,
Right.
right? And there's another vertical which is completely separate, and that's one is where you test AI, where you have to perform certain test activities on LLMs, both commercial and custom made, and custom models, not necessarily large language models, but custom models, and also on even full application like GenAI apps and agentic AI. So, and for the day conversation, I would probably segue towards mostly how to test LLMs and not so much about how to do AI system testing, because there's not that many people are familiar with what it is and how to deal with that.
Yeah. So I want to add for AI assistant testing, like I've experienced it and experiencing it firsthand. And I think it's evolving fairly quickly. The new tools come out or something becomes mainstream. But in general, your average tester, where I see the future of this, will become kind of an AI manager that where AI steps in at the stage of the requirements, it analyzes them and helps you out to build test cases or a test plan based on those requirements. And you're going to look through those and see how much coverage is actually created. And based on that, you're going to plug it in to some MCP with Playwright or some AI agent that will start generating tests. And then you can plug them in into your testing framework, run them, see the results, see if all the locators are correct, if something's failing, fix it up. And then you just kind of maintain and keep on adding and updating. So as I see right now, in terms of AI assistance testing, it will become an increasingly tool in the demand. So your average manual QA will evolve over the years into QA AI manager kind of a profession there.
100%. We call this, there's no name for those folks yet, but we kind of have a nickname we call superhuman testers. They're like superheroes because they have pedigree of knowledge and also knowledge of tooling. And during this QA apocalypse, I call it, right, those will survive that knows like really good practices. We talk about not just functional, we talk about non-functional testing, right? A lot of things that a lot of folks never touch, like accessibility testing or localization testing, performance, stress, load. I'm not going to list everything, but again, if you listen to Jason Auburn talks, he's good at this, much better than I do. He's a great presenter. He actually talks about that. Highly recommend to add him LinkedIn and watch his videos. But those testers are those who will be primarily take over the market in the next 2 years. And for
Yeah.
the matter of fact, we're actually internally incubating these people in Ingenious and already experimenting with that kind of predicting superhuman tester and in the existing accounts, embedding them and switching from traditional testing methodologies and approaches to this new era of AI assistant testing.
Yeah. One of the concerns that a lot of people raise in the QA is that, okay, AI is going to replace us, right? And I say, I think the evolution, a revolution will happen naturally. And over time, the tools are just going to get used more. There's really limited attention span of how much human can do. So you as a super tester will probably manage like 3 agents that do several tasks and you like overlook the results and you'll have a team of those guys. So it's not going to be like manual QA, automation QA. It's going to be like 3, 4 people looking at the project and managing the different aspects of what AI is doing. And I think that's going to be like a natural evolution because there are regulations. A lot of companies are against implementing AI because of hallucinations. There are like financial industries or healthcare industries. There might be certain laws and regulations. So it's going to be a process and not everyone going to adapt to it. But yeah, there will be changes, and I think we will see them soon.
100%. It's already happening. We again, due to the nature of our business, to work with multiple companies at the same time, and you will be surprised, it's actually moving pretty fast. So I would think it's going to be sooner rather than later. This whole revolution is happening as of we speak right now, and it changes every day. The great example, Grok 4 was released only a couple of weeks ago, and it's just game changer.
Top model so
Yeah,
fast. Yeah.
it's a great example how fast everything moves. But the good news for testers, right? And that's why I want to segue to different topic, right? I mean, different vertical. So the AI system testing going to happen, and it's imminent, it's already happening. So if you haven't started looking in that direction, I highly recommend just stop doing what you're doing. If you're writing code manually, you're doing something wrong. It's supposed to be through prompts nowadays, and MCP changed it all with a context now. So again, just if you're watching this podcast and still writing code by hand, probably stop what you're doing and go learn these things. And if you stay until the end of this interview, I'm going to show you where you can learn this. I think that's going to be really important as well. But let's segue slowly, probably to a
Yep.
different part of our conversation is where the probably human testers will be most valuable is where we're going to test those models, and nobody talks about this, which is
Right.
surprising for me, right? How to test LLMs, how to test custom AI models, how to test Gen AI.
Right. It's one thing when you use AI assistant to help you test the product. It's another thing when the product implemented the AI, and now you have to test the AI within the product to make sure that the results are actually what you expect them to be. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I want to start maybe to screen share and
Mhm.
show you, like, it could be more visual. What's the major difference between the traditional testing methodologies and AI testing methodologies, which are non-deterministic? So I'm going to share my screen. Great. So as you can see on the screen, I made it very visually appealing to distinguish between the traditional software testing that we all get accustomed to versus AI software testing, right? And on the left hand side, in the left column, we see all the aspects, right, of testing, like input output, reproducibility, failure model, and testing approaches. So with traditional testing, it's a cookie cutter, right? You get fixed rules, same input always gives the same output. That's what everybody get used to. With testing LLMs and custom models, it's about learning patterns. Same input may give you different output, which we notice when a lot of folks transition to the testing AI models, they have to change their mindset. And this is like number one deal breaker. Same thing with the reproducibility, right? If there's a bug, I mean, subjectively, you always reproduce the same result, right? But you know what I'm talking about. With again, AI models can vary even with the same input. And failure modes, right? Again, clear error, bug, crash, wrong output. In testing models, it could be bias, incorrect prediction, drift, and you mentioned hallucination. Testing approaches, again, exact expected output, like unit testing or even functional testing. So it's kind of, you are going for the assertions, deterministic testing with testing AI models. It's non-deterministic. So statistical evaluation, there's always going to be some sort of percentage involved, not like, again, pass or fail, accuracy check, and large data sets. And that's what actually we noticed during the transition for a lot of QE folks or even SDATs who work on automation. They have to change their mindset. And Alex, if you ask, like, what would be the different types of testing AI models, right? Or we call them AI testing challenges, which is differ from traditional testing, client server application testing, right? So number one, security is a big thing, right? And that's why a lot of companies opposing integration of AI into their products, especially health tech and fintech organizations are probably number one. Number two challenge is hallucination, right? Is dealing with factual data. How do we know that even most educated, or say trained, most trained LLMs can still hallucinate, right? Another big thing is bias and fairness, right, which can actually spawn off legal issues. And number three, again, we started with a zero, right, like in a computer kind of approach, right? Um, Number three will be performance and consistency, which is also very important, especially if you are in the business of building agentic AI, your own agents. Performance becomes a big thing. Like, great example, build an agent that does a customer support. or perform certain activities of automation within your business. That's where the performance and consistency have to be really tested for. Great example, FedEx, right? You want to make sure you get a shipment,
Yeah.
get a right shipping tracking number all the time. Context limitations is another big one. Human value alignment, that's also another huge thing that people never thought of, and we have to test for that. And most importantly, compliance, right? You have to be like great example. We work currently on a pretty big project for in the space of biohacking, and we have to be HIPAA compliant. So by
Right.
default, by the way, for those folks who never heard, like OpenAI, I mean, major commercial models are by default HIPAA compliant already, just FYI. But when you build your custom model, it's a little bit different.
Right. And then context limitation, is that something when you open up a AI prompt chat on car dealership and you start asking about, hey, can you solve me like a Python coding challenge, and it starts giving you response instead of talking about cars and just goes into like generic AI? Is that the context challenge there?
Yes and no, but the point I tried to make was this slide. Again, I'm not gonna go deep details because of our timing constraint
Hmm.
into each of this
Hmm.
type of testing. The idea is that I want to show the previous slide that yes, the answer is yes, and there's a lot of things underneath, under hood, which are people never think about this. And as our discussion today gonna evolve, I'm gonna show examples of what probably examples will be more vivid than just talk about this.
Okay. So, Igor, you just showed a lot of different challenges that are pertaining to testing the AI. But I'm wondering, like, who's actually hiring? Is there actual jobs right now where companies want AI testers?
Really good question. A lot of folks on my LinkedIn asked exactly the same question. They always say, Igor, you have all these articles, blog posts about testing LMs, testing custom models, but who's actually hiring for this? And I tasked my recruiting team to generate me every month a fresh list of companies who are hiring for this particular role. So let me share my screen. I'm going to show you a list of the companies that probably about a month old that were hiring for such roles. As you can see on the screen, there are 50 companies that are, I mean, at least months ago were hiring for specifically, and they call this different, like the name of the role, AI tester, LLM tester, um, QE who has AI testing skills. It's all over across the board. But you can see there's a lot of companies that start, and that list grows every month, by the way, who are hiring for such role.
Yeah. One interesting thing about the position titles, it's a good indicator that industry is evolving really fast, and there's no certain standard because some company might be looking for AI tester, the other is still calling it quality assurance engineer, and another calls it data QA specialist. Which why would be data if you're thinking about AI, right? And one thinks about AI product or something. I mean, very different names, AI model testing. So there's no standard. Everything is moving really fast.
Absolutely. And that's what I tried to make an emphasis here. It could be just a regular name like QE Engineer 2, right? Or QA Engineer 2. But in the description, they want to have the skills. Well, I would actually disagree. The data is also very important because nowadays, testers who test LLMs and custom models have to deal with synthetic data, right? And they have to use frameworks like Hugging Face, which is open source solution to generate synthetic data in order to test LLMs. You cannot test the models with the same data set that was trained. That would be
Right.
very biased, right? So that's why you see this array of different titles that companies haven't standardized yet, which I think going to change in a few years to some sort of standard role. Same way, like
Like
the
QA automation engineer, everybody kind of knows what it is, right?
yes,
So
yes.
AI tester will be probably a standard at some point. Another thing that I noticed, the companies are all over the place. Like you have Apple, then you have Meta, then you have Qualcomm, which is like a semiconductor, versus like a social networking company. You have a chat like a Discord. You have payment services. So it's across the board. Salesforce. It's not just one industry. It's not only like the big names, OpenAI. It's every different type of industry out there.
Absolutely. And the reason is because all these companies either have a business unit or part of the business that try to integrate AI into, and that's why it's across the board. And the list is going to grow every month. So it's imminent. For the matter of fact, I will actually show you another interesting thing, like what exactly skills they're looking for. Let me open one of these companies' job descriptions so that our viewers can see what exactly companies are looking for. As you can see on the screen, this particular company looks for, and the job title is right here. We were just talking a second ago about that. GenAI ML application testing engineer. They just put everything in one title,
And
right?
then BA plus QA, like business analyst, or what is BA here?
It's exactly what it's just mind blowing, right? You look at this, this is like a Frankenstein, right? They put
Right.
all these names in one, yeah. And this is a hybrid location. But anyway, long story short, I would like to put an emphasis on the key role responsibility and the skills. So if you look at this, they say design and execute test cases for GenAI ML features and user flows, use GenAI specific tools to validate prompt consistency, hallucination detection. Remember the previous slides I was showing you, companies demanding this actually. And furthermore, in terms of the skills, right, they want to have hands-on testing experience with GenAI and ML products, tooling. And we're gonna actually talk more about tooling like Promful, right, which is open source, Langsmith, right, TrueLens. So they want, one of these tools that a lot of folks never even heard of, right? And on top of this, they want to know how to script. Why? Because, for instance, LangTest, right, is one of the tools using Python, right, in order to automate the process for testing the prompts, right? And again, this is just basically general understanding of how the REST API JSON YAML is working. Why? Because behind the scene, for instance, prompt will use YAML format to write the test cases in, right? And then now, if you push the ball further in terms of skill set, is experience in the RAG, chatbot, LLM, agentic systems. So they now want you to know different flavors of AI systems. So as you can see, the whole job description has changed drastically, right? What it used to be demanded from traditional QA people.
All right, that's very interesting. So this is high end kind of as that AI automation position because it requires so many different tools there.
The good news, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a big demand. I mean, not big demand, there's demand, not a huge demand yet, but there's no supply. Companies willing to pay extra for this. Like a lot of folks who you probably see it every day on the LinkedIn complaining about layoffs, there's no jobs, job market stuff. These jobs are open for a month. This
How
position cannot.
much how much something like that pays? Have you had any like offers and the ballpark on the salary for this?
Absolutely. And the reason that we know this because we teach the skill, and we're going to talk later about the educational part of Ingenious, where we actually start incubating such people, such engineers. And one of our students from April cohort got a job. So we're talking about roughly, I'm going to say like I'm not going to give exact amount just to be
Right.
politically correct, but it's 50% more what traditional as that's used to make. Like I said, it's just because pure supply demand problem. I think it's true for also any AI or data scientist engineer, like data
Right.
engineer, data scientist. So I would say probably if we're talking about California, right? I'm going to specifically talk about California because this is like the highest
Yeah,
paid
top
one.
top paying.
Yeah, top paying. So we're talking about 300K plus per year.
300.
Yeah, that's, and then I say plus because it involves other components of compensation, could be equity involved in this and sign up bonuses and other things.
Right.
So it's shocking for most people, but this is true because, like I said, there is a demand and no supply.
You show the list of the companies. We look through the job description. I mean, it's pretty awesome. But like, what kind of things are you going to get asked during the interview? If I want to become AI tester, I think there's some tools. There's some things I need to know. What are they?
Yeah, and again, because we start building these people and we ourselves interviewing for such roles, I will tell you the questions we ask and the questions we've heard our graduates were asked in interviews. And those are such as like, what's the difference between traditional testing versus LM or AI models? And that's what I showed you in the slide before earlier during our today's podcast. Another question would be, how would you scale if you need to test 100 prompts against multiple models? So if you need to compare your custom model versus the commercial model like OpenAI, Anthropic, right? And even more. I mean, under OpenAI, there's like 10 plus models, right? Again, what to compare for, right? And why do you need 100 prompts? And the answer is that's where the automation comes into the place, and tools like Prompt make you scalable. Before, people use LM Studio, but it only can test one thing at a time. Now, with tools like Prompt, which is open source and completely free, you can do that. So you can compare models on scale against multiple prompts at the same time, and can compare for factual response, right? Make sure that the models are give you factual data. You can test for the token consumption, because tokens are not for free, right? If you test against, let's say, your application under hood have OpenAI, and OpenAI is not for free. Each model costs different number of tokens. So now you have to, when you have your own GenAI solution for your company, you're testing for it. Now money is a factor. You want to see how much it's going to cost a corporation to use it. That's why you have this load of prompts, right? Not just one, hundreds of prompts, and see how much each model consumes for exactly the same prompt. And they choose the right model for the right thing. And at the same
Right.
time, on top of this, you check for latency, right? For the performance. You want to see like which model is actually failing to go with a fast response. Obviously, the bigger the model, the faster it's going to respond, right? Prompt injection, security, we talked about that aspect earlier. Like for instance, if you test like HR AI agent, you try to prompt to ignore previous system instructions and expose social security numbers of the employees of the company. So you can test everything in the one umbrella. Another big one, that question that a lot of people fail, is how to test LLMs with LLMs. Like for instance, instead of use deterministic assertions like what is the capital of California, Sacramento, right? This is like traditional one. We test for like, hey, we ask a model like prompt, like non-deterministic prompt, such as write a tweet to announce a new AI product and assert for enthusiastic tone of voice, and it has to be below than 50 characters or 50 words. And then a large model will test your custom model or smaller model for that. And usually seasonal testers who know this will answer it correctly. So this type of questions in the ballpark that usually people get asked during an interview for such roles. So you have at least kind of in your head right now a picture what you have to
Mhm.
prepare for.
Yeah. So the last example is kind of interesting. So you have AI that is being tested by other AIs, and you kind of manage those others AIs to do the testing properly. It's pretty cool. And let's say something goes wrong, like what an actual bug looks like if you test an AI, and what is it like, wrong responses, or how does it look? How do you report it?
Absolutely. Again, let me share my screen and show as an example of from one of the startups we actually work with, the Ingenious. We have IP, so I can show this bug. So you have a vivid example of that. As you can see on the screen, there's a Trello bug, right, from a real project, the application called We Optimize, which is the agentic AI app, specifically built for the back office solution for B2B product, right? And you can see the definition of the bug is list of requirements for Homeflow. Homeflow is just name of the project from the Jira integration, right? was not returned if my question had a functional in it. So if we look at the screenshot, and the screenshot, this was tested in a PromFu. I mentioned this tool, and I can show that a little bit later, more in action. But that's if you look at the relevance, right, of the bug, right on the left hand side, we test for the relevance. So what are functional requirements for the home flow? And as I mentioned, home flow is a project, and that's where the LLM itself determines that it's only 63% relevant, while the tester who was testing it put a threshold of 90% for the pass, and says like,
Mm.
I'm sorry, but I don't have specific information regarding the functional requirements for home flow. So LM determined that it's less than the threshold and failed test case. This is a great example of non-deterministic testing done by LLM. And if you look at the test case on the bottom, which is list requirements for home flow, for consistency, it was misspelled. Again, it was done by real testers, so it's a human error, right? But if
The
you look at the
report, yeah.
right hand side, yeah.
Hmm.
Again, we were shooting for 100% consistency, right? And
Yeah,
now it passed actually against the consistency. And as you can see, it was testing against only one model. And
right.
I can show you another example where
But before we move from that, I just wanted to kind of highlight and explain what's going on for those who's watching this. Maybe it's not right away clear, but they use two different prompts to ask for the requirements. But in the very first prompt, they add word functional, and prompt essentially said, I don't, the response said, I don't have any specific functional information, which is not correct response because any requirements are functional requirements, or most of them. So the other LLM tested that response and says it's failing because it needs to be at least 90% accurate uh, based on the question, and it's not. It gave it only 63. It failed the test case, and the tester, AI tester, actually reported a bug based on those findings that AI agent found testing other AI. And then in the second case, you see they have a prompt that removed word functional and it just asked for the requirements, and all of a sudden, the response is looking good. So, kind of interesting case where one word actually messes up your LLM response, and here's a non-deterministic testing and a bug.
absolutely, yeah, and this is a great breakdown, which is completely blown away a lot of people who comes from traditional testing, because it's not a cookie cutter, which I mentioned. There's no clear pass or fail. But after doing this for a little bit, for even a month, you start getting a hold of it and start understanding how to kind of change your approach for that. Absolutely. So another great example of a defect, which actually was found by LLM, so LLM testing the LLM. As you can see, there's a configuration, YAML configuration of PromFu. So that's how the PromFu is defined in terms of test cases.
Mm.
And this is a quick video that we recorded specifically for this podcast. As you can see on the screen, we're testing fact-checking myth, visibility of the Great Wall, specifically from the space. And we're testing against several models. Two of them OpenAI and one is Anthropic. So we tested against GPT-4o, GPT-4o Mini, and Anthropic Claude 3.5.
Yeah, for those who don't know YAML, you look at the line 3 and line 7 and line 11 to find the name of the AI agents that being tested.
Absolutely. And then prompts, basically the description of the whole prompt. You will see the claim below. Your only job is to fact check. So we actually give instruction for the prompt, right? And it's a multi-liner prompt, right? It's kind of nested prompt. If the claim
Mhm.
is incorrect or misleading, clearly state that it is false and briefly explain why, referring general facts. Do not fabricate citations. So you see, it's very, prompt engineering is very precise instructions, right? A lot of people have to understand, right? It's not general, it's very precise. And then claim the Great Wall of China is visible from the space with the naked eye and is the only human made structure, right? And then the continuation of this, you will see it's visible from space. Is this claim true or false? Provide your answer and explanation. And as you can see on line 31, it says LLM rubric, which
This is
actually,
testing agent.
yes, which gonna test. So LLM gonna test LLM. It's a great example. And value, the response clearly states that the claim is false or mostly false, and explains why. And there's obviously a truncated string, which is for the screen. Great Wall is not visible from space. So again, quickly, this is a video, right? So quickly gonna run through this one more time. Again, this is highlighting that we are using different models, highlighting the prompt. It's a multi-liner prompt, right? Which is very readable. Again, we're specific, do not fabricate citation. So everything I said earlier, which is basically highlighting here in this visual demo. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Again, PromFu runs on top of Node.js server. It's command line tool for in terms of execution. That's why it works from any CI like Jenkins or Circle CI. Then we can run it. So you see PromFu view. So we run it and then visually gonna show representation of execution. So that's how I'm gonna pause for a second. This is the how PromFu results looks after execution. Because it's Node.js server, you can actually run PromFu in your company as a server. So all testers have access to all this data and can see all the results. As you can see right here, we show this is the basically a prompt. The test case passed on GPT-4o, right? And it says it is false, right? That's exactly what we want to see, right? And it's tested by LLM.
Right.
And then the second one, the 4 GPT-4 Mini also said its claim false, but Anthropic did a very different answer. It gives actually, you see how it broken down. It says claim contains two parts, both which are inaccurate, right? It's exactly what we wanted. So in a nutshell, this is a great example where LLMs tested LLM and you tested exactly the same prompt against different models. It's a perfect visual example what is going to be your job day to day, and it's only one prompt. Imagine you can do hundreds of them, and
Oh yeah.
that's how you automate the process.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
One last question in terms of testing. Like, I'm not an AI developer, and I mean, I've been doing mostly traditional testing in different industries, including like automation. But one thing that I think is moving from the world of AI development into world of AI testing is red teaming. Like, I've heard that term. It's shows a lot on like LinkedIn, and I know it has to do something with kind of hacking or get into the system or like pretending to be someone to trick AI. Like, what is red teaming and what kind of testing is that?
I mean, we can talk about hours about red teaming. It's a completely
Maybe like a quick
topic.
summary so people are familiar. Yeah.
Quick summary, it is basically impersonation, right? When you try to impersonate in order to jailbreak your model, right? And that's where the famous one you can Google for, like AI do anything now. It's called Dan prompt, which is actually get a lot of headache for OpenAI originally. And this is a great example from real world. But in a nutshell, we're using the same prompt food tool that you've seen before, an approach to basically try to hijack your LLM to expose vulnerable data, right? Through impersonation. This is just one short answer. There are different plugins in PromptFu that enables you to perform such testing. So there are few of them actually available in PromptFu, like harmful hate and harmful self-harm. Those one actually enables you to even fine-tune your PromptFu as a plugin to test specifically for red teaming. But what you're actually testing in it is a behavior override resistance. So in a nutshell, again, we can talk for hours about this during our, so you understand, during our 1 month program that we teach students, we dedicate 2 classes on red teaming, like
Wow.
basically 8 hours on it. It's very important topic because that creates a lot of And again, if you type in the Google or ChatGPT red teaming and the real world examples from internet, you will see a lot of cases where it causes a lot of damage. That's why red teaming is one of the most important approaches that QA have to test. And we talk about red teaming is not only one security type testing you have to perform. So that's why a lot of testers that never touch security in their career, I think this is a great opportunity. You will do a lot of that in testing LLMs and custom models.
Right. Yeah. So I think, I mean, it's a pretty extensive video, and we have to kind of wrap it up because of the time constraints. But I wanted to ask a kind of final question. Like, if I'm a QA engineer and I see the changes coming, the tide is there, like I need to do something. What do I do? What's my next step? To
I
be
mean,
demanded on the market.
that's a great question. I think we answer a lot of it during our interview, Alex. I think
Right.
people already is probably the reason for this podcast was to kind of wake people up, right? And because before that, a lot of folks were looking to AI system testing, like everybody talks about MCP, about how we can go with a Kursor, Windsurf, and LLMs with a playwright faster for web testing. Everybody talks about this. However, to my surprise, nobody talks about how to test the AI itself, right? And then I think that what we try to do during this podcast is to wake people up. So the answer is you have to start learning yesterday. Right now, stop what you're doing and start learning this. If you want to be in this field, and as you can see by job description, if you look at these tools like LM Studio, Promptful, Langtest, and other tools we mentioned during today's session, and words like red teaming, that is all foreign for you. I think you should get alerted and jump and start learning. So that's the best way to go. This remember, 5 out of 8 human functions as a tester will be taken by AI. It's imminent. It's happening, right? Remember, we talk about the AI orchestrator. You will be more role of like kind of thumbs up or thumbs down, evaluating the results of what the AI agents will do. But what AI cannot take for you is a human judgment, where it could be really helpful to test AI, right? So I would just go start learning.
Just dig into information. But well, like, what about Ingenious? What kind of training you do? What do you guys offer?
Yes, absolutely. And then I mentioned a few times about training we do. And so Ingenious, as I mentioned, is a consulting company with managed delivery and staff augmentation services, where we place these testers in the company. So what we run into last year, 2024, when our clients start coming to us and asking for these engineers. And what happened is, after interviewing probably, I would say, I'm not going to lie right now, more than 20, 30 for sure. My recruiting team interviewed at least 20 plus engineers. We couldn't hire a single person. And that was about November 2024. Then we realized that it's going to be really hard to fill this role. And that's why we have decided that we have to start incubating these people. And that's where we start thinking how we can teach this skill. And that's when we assemble the team of our ML engineer, our senior engineering staff, our senior quality engineers. And between November and April, we'll build the first course curriculum. I'm going to share the screen right now, show exactly what we've done. So it's not typical course. It's more like a bootcamp hands-on program we call Career Accelerator. It's done only for folks who've been for a while in the industry. It's not for the newcomers, not for the beginners. If you are just started QA, this is not for you guys. Unfortunately, you have to have a lot of knowledge in QA field, specifically have background testing different products. You have to be knowledgeable.
If you want to start QA, check out my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
Alexusadays.
Alex is a perfect resource for this. However, this program is for those who've been like in testing for a while and puzzled what to do next. So we built this curriculum. It's 100% hands-on. We don't do any like theory. It's a 5 weeks. So 4 weeks we are if you go to our course page, and we're going to share that in the video description with everyone, you can see that we basically break down for everything from setup, the tooling, start testing from day like 1, 2, and we go into everything we discussed today, different approaches like security, hallucination, contextual testing, factual data testing, bias. We're going to do it hands-on. Primarily, we're going to use a PromFu as a tool. We're also going to expose a few other tools besides PromFu, just to give you, various vision on, but they do pretty much the same thing. Starting week 3, which it becomes interesting, we start putting you on the real project we optimize. So you start testing the custom models against the commercial models and filing real bugs, writing real test cases. And the most important that after week 4, we don't put here on our curriculum, but we have week 5, it's called bonus week, where we basically spend a weekend of positioning you on the market, like how to go to market, how to pass an interview, what you have to write in the LinkedIn. Together, we actually write blog posts about this to kind of advertise this role and promote your own LinkedIn profiles. So out of this curriculum, you're gonna end up with a lot of new skill set that you never done before. But most importantly, you can talk about this during interview for hours, right? Because it's gonna be contextual, project based on real startup with the real stuff. Another important thing that we're doing it on the weekend, right? Because we understand everybody busy during the week, people have jobs, families, so we do it on the weekend. We adjusted perfectly for PST and EST time. And you can see here on top, this is a schedule. And it's also recorded. So if you cannot make it, you can watch recording. We have dedicated private Discord community and channel specifically for this, where you can talk to instructors. And I said it right, instructors plural. We only can handle 30, maximum 40 people at a time. And we have one instructor per 10 people because it's heavy hands-on course. So it's multiple instructors in the same room. We do, like I said, in a virtual environment. It's in a Zoom, but then we break everybody in the teams and do hands-on exercises and instructors floating around these virtual rooms. Then we present and we move on. So like 3 hours go very fast. A lot of people actually demand, can we stay more? So we do breaks in between, but that's the idea. The best way to learn is kind of perform it in the job environment, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what we do in August. We have only 2 spots left for the August. And if you go on our Ingenious University web page, there is one going to be in October. If you cannot make or this August cohort get completely filled, then you can join October one. And next year we plan to do 8 of them. So as of right now, we have a team of 5 instructors who are going to teach that interchangeably. It's very heavy on them to teach this. So we're going to rotate on the teams. And obviously for us, it's important people get jobs, right? So it's very like job oriented and make sure that people get employed. That's why we don't take, as you can see here in October, we can take only 40 people max. So it's not like mass production kind of. We're not in business of education. We are in business of consulting. So we need consultants, right? We need
Right.
to incubate them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Igor, thank you so much for the information. So check out the description and to the video and see all the links if you're interested. This was very informative. I think this will be like one of the rare videos right now online available that actually talks about AI testing. This is awesome. Thank you.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah. Thank you, Alex.
All right. Bye bye.